What a week. Am I right? Welcome back to Starring Stephanie Campos. This is the second episode that will cover the week of February 2nd through February 8th, 2026. In today's episode, we are going to go over what part of the lunation cycle are we moving through, the best astrology of the week, the worst astrology of the week, and a few important news items. And you'll get a tarot reading as well. But first, what a week. Am I right? I feel like every episode of this series is going to start out like that because look at the world around us. I took just a couple of notes here on some news items that I want to highlight and elevate. And just keep in mind that right now, there's so many important news stories constantly. This is a tactic used by the administration to overwhelm us and to attack our nervous system. So it's impossible for me to cover everything. But these were just a few that really stood out. So, number one, the government spent over $22 billion of taxpayer money on contracts for ICE and the Border Patrol in 2025. That is our money going directly into these organizations that are terrorizing and kidnapping our neighbors, our loved ones, and humans. As for what we can do about it, because I think it's so important to pair some of these horrifying news stories with action items, there's going to be different roles for all of us. Some of us can call our senators. Some of us can protest in the streets. Some of us can create art or elevate news stories or use our voice or writing in some way. Right now, I think it is so important to join the general strike. If and when possible, do not spend money. Do not go to work. Withhold your resources. That sends a powerful message to the government. So when there are these organized strikes, like there was recently on January 30th, participate to the best of your ability. Cancel subscriptions, even if you have to sign back up later. All of this adds up and sends a message. Donating to mutual aid, especially right now in Minnesota, can be incredibly helpful for people who have been kidnapped by ICE. So you can look up and search online Minnesota mutual aid for immigrants, for people detained by ICE, and you will see some results. You can also do this in your own area because let's be real, this is happening all around the country as well. My thinking in elevating these news stories isn't to try to overwhelm our nervous system, but it's just to keep us informed and engaged and remind everyone that it's these small steps and actions that us, the regular people, take every day that are going to move the needle. No one is going to come and save us. No politician, no leader. This is something that we can do as a collective. There are more of us than there are of them. And there are small steps we can take in our own way that are going to look different from everyone around us, but that will contribute to moving the needle and rebalancing the scales and serving justice. Okay. A whole bunch of Epstein files were released. I'm not going to get into that because I'm a survivor of sexual assault as a child. And it was super fucking triggering for me to read. But if that is something that interests you, our president is a predator. And I think it's so important to remember that this is so much beyond him. Like there's so much focus on him, but this is a deep, powerful ring of an organization with a lot of powerful people who are involved. And it goes much deeper beyond him. That's all I'm going to say about that. But fucking disgusting. TikTok was acquired by a bunch of US companies, or a big portion of it, right? And we know that Larry Ellison, the owner of Oracle, who is the single largest donor to the IOF, now owns a big portion and stake in the US versions of TikTok. And a bunch of creators were reporting that their content was being suppressed already once the acquisition took place. And I experienced this. I wore a shirt that said Free Palestine, Free Congo, Free Sudan, and I was getting 0 views. I made other posts in other shirts that had nothing to do with politics or what's going on in the world, and I was still getting 0 views. I've noticed that my engagement on that platform has changed. I unfortunately am not in a position where I can delete the platform completely. It is my biggest audience, and we live in capitalism, and I have to pay my bills still. So I'm not feeling great about the platform, but I'm still on there. I also haven't upscrolled if you want to follow me on there. I'm posting more to YouTube as well. I have my Patreon always. Like, that's a great place to get in touch one-on-one with me. But very creepy. The vibes are creepy on TikTok. And Bisan, who is this journalist, this Palestinian journalist who has millions of followers, her account was banned completely. I think it has been since reinstated, but I mean, what are the odds that right after the acquisition that happened to her account? There is some sort of crazy censorship going over there. My algorithm, my feed is like totally wild. I'm seeing content from straight white men. Just kidding. If you're a straight white man that listens to this, but not really. Yeah, just content that I never would have seen before. And I'm like, why is this showing up on my page? Like, I don't care about football. I don't know what's going on here. But yeah, wild times over there. So just a friendly reminder that censorship is happening everywhere, that there are just a very few number of billionaires that own and control the majority of the media. So even more important to seek out independent news sources, which leads me into our next item. We had the arrests of 4 prominent independent journalists: Georgia Fort, Don Lemon, Jamal Lundy, and Traham Cruz. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, so please let me know if I am not. Another thing to note, these 4 journalists were all Black. The Trump administration arrested them because they were filming a protest in Minnesota that took place in a church, and they're arresting journalists. And I think that this is something that is also very important to highlight because, yes, freedom of speech, but also we've been seeing Israel murdering journalists. Like, the most journalists have been murdered in this ongoing genocide in Palestine, more than like all of our prior wars combined back to, I think, World War II. And this is unprecedented. Like, what we allow to happen to the Palestinians and what we just kind of shake off, they're going to do here. And it's beginning, right? They're targeting and arresting journalists for capturing the truth, for speaking the truth, and they're targeting Black journalists to start. So this is just something, again, important to stay informed, important to seek out independent media sources, to support these journalists however you can. I get a lot of my news from Here's Why Kevin on Instagram. That's his handle. Ground News is another great place to seek out information and unbiased reporting. I also really love the account on Instagram, So Informed. They do great breaking news. Representative Joaquim Castro of Texas escorted Liam Ramos and his father out of ICE detention. Liam was that little boy who there was this picture taken of him in a blue hat with a little Spider-Man backpack, and he was kidnapped by ICE, and he was used as bait to try to get his parents to come out of the house so they could also be kidnapped by ICE. He got very, very sick in detention, and it's because of people like you and me who have been calling our senators and our representatives, who've been talking about it out loud on social media, who've been protesting, doing whatever we can, supporting mutual aid for that area. It's all these little actions that made it possible for Liam and his father to be released. And I think it's also so important to note that Liam's not the only little kid that this has happened to, that there are so many other little children just like Liam who are in ICE's custody in deplorable conditions. And it's why it's so important that we continue to speak out. Okay, so what a week, right? But hopefully that last news item does give you the encouragement and reminder that we do make a difference. Something I struggle with personally as someone with pretty much all fire planets in my chart is I'm so impatient. Ask my husband. I have not an ounce of patience in me. And I wake up every morning and I'm waiting for the headline that's like, this is all over, but that's never going to happen, right? Like, that's just not how this works. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And it is going to take these consistent daily actions. And the world that I'm envisioning, that I'm calling in, I might not see it in my lifetime, right? But I know that every step that I take, at least this is what I remind myself, is bringing us closer to creating the world in which we are all free. Okay, so you want to know about the astrology of this week, so let's get into it. So this week, we are starting out just after that full moon in Leo. So that means that the moon is now waning and it is losing, excuse me, and it is losing light. As the moon loses light, this is not the time to manifest. It's not the time to set intentions. It's not the time to put pressure on yourself. This is a period of shedding and releasing. It's a period of integration for integrating any aha moments, revelations, or decisions, anything that was revealed under that full moon. This is a time to sit with those feelings and to integrate them and to give yourself time and space to think about what comes next and also what you can shed yourself and release to create space for something or someone that's more in alignment. So just a gentle and friendly reminder that this isn't the time to put pressure on yourself this week. If you feel like there's tons of stuff you want to get done or you're further behind than where you wish you would have been at this point in your life, just hold the phone, okay? Cut yourself some slack and try to move with nature's natural rhythm and cycles. And just remember that this is a period of kind of slowing down and reflecting and releasing. Okay, what is the BFD, the biggest freaking deal transit taking place this week? Well, on February 3rd, we have Uranus stationing direct in the sign of Taurus. And Uranus is a planet of unpredictability, change, sudden events, destabilization, revolution, liberation, and innovation. And because it is so far away from Earth, we only really feel the effects of the retrograde 2 times: the day that the planet goes retrograde and the day that it stations direct. So Uranus went retrograde on September 6th. And so it is going to bring us back to that day and that time period. Similar themes and topics may reemerge. What is so important about this particular station is that this is the final tour through Taurus. Uranus is moving through Taurus and it's finishing up this long story and cycle that we've been moving through since like 2018-ish. So this is a long story in the section of our Taurus house in our birth chart. And on April 26th, Uranus will move into Gemini for good for the next 7 years. So this is kind of like an exclamation point moment regarding your personal Uranus and Taurus and the collective's Uranus and Taurus storylines. So we're really going to feel the energy and the revelations a little bit more intensely on this day. This can be a day where there are surprises, where you have big emotional highs or lows. There's unexpected events. You feel ready to take a risk. You're ready to embrace a more authentic sense of self. This can be empowering and liberating, but it can also be destabilizing and it can have you feeling anxious or uncertain or just frazzled in some way. So just know that this energy is big. Now, as for the best astrology of the week, I will say this. This week is full of Uranian energy. We have a few planets that are facing off with Uranus. We have Uranus stationing direct, and this is going to bring a lot of unpredictability and surprising energy to the backdrop of most of the days of this week. So that is a little unavoidable. However, there is a sweet pocket. On Thursday, February 5th, the moon will be in Libra, and it will be traveling from Pluto in Aquarius to Mars in Libra, and it's forming trines with both of these planets. This is actually productive energy, motivating energy, empowering energy. But I will say Mercury squares Uranus on that day. So there is that element of unexpected conversations, revelations, odd interactions, off-putting interactions. There just is that kind of throughout the entire week. But this window of time in particular, if there's something you need to focus on, if there's something you want to get done, if there is a raw and important and vulnerable conversation that you want to have, this is a great time to do it because it's interacting with that Mars-Pluto conjunction that we had last week that was very volatile, but in a gentle and supportive way. So this kind of creates this moment where we're able to integrate or express some of our feelings that we experienced from the week prior, but in a way that is a little bit more supportive. And since the moon in Libra is traveling between these two planets kind of the whole day, it just creates this energy of flow in the backdrop of the day. Now, as for the worst astrology of the week, so on Saturday, February 7th, the moon in Scorpio will form a square with Pluto in Aquarius. And the following morning, it will form a square with Mars in Aquarius. And so this is actually creating a source of tension between that Mars-Pluto conjunction that we had the week prior. And on the same day, we have Venus forming a square with Uranus. So this is creating a sense of power struggles and jealousy and manipulation and obsessive thoughts, and our coping mechanisms and our triggers are all kind of being built up and coming up to the surface. And this energy can be reactive and triggering. And at the same time, we have Venus, the planet of connection and relationships and our personal values, clashing into Uranus, which is really going to bring a sense of instability or surprising events or interactions to our close connections. I would say Saturday evening on February 7th through midday on February 8th, there is just going to be this pocket of time that feels a little bit more chaotic. So hopefully that helps you plan accordingly. And in general, just so you all know, Uranus is very active on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday. So do your best to expect the unexpected. Okay, let's pull some cards. So this week on February 4th, I'm hosting my monthly meetup with my patrons, and we're going to be doing a tarot reading and psychic development circle. So if you have any interest in building your relationship with your intuition or your psychic abilities, or want to learn more about reading tarot, and I'll be reading cards for people, and we'll be doing practice exercises with each other to help build our skills as well. And if you have interest in this, you can join. There's a link in the show notes. It'll be taking place on Wednesday, February 4th in the afternoon at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and there's always a replay. Okay, but what does the tarot want you to know this week? I've got 2 8s coming through. We have the 8 of Swords and the 8 of Wands. So 8 might be a significant number for you. If you were born on the 8th, if you were born in August, just keep that in mind. That might be extra significant for you. When I see these 2 cards paired together, the 8 of Swords is all about our limiting beliefs, our role in perpetuating cycles and patterns, and our own victimhood, where we see this figure who is bound up, who looks helpless. But if you examine the card a little closer, they're actually able to just slip off those restraints and move on and continue on. So there is this element of self-sabotage or playing the victim or being stuck. And swords are our thoughts, right? That is the element that corresponds with air in the tarot. And now the 8 of Wands is all about action, movement, travel, developments. And so for me, when I see these 2 cards paired together, this feels like when you choose to confront a limiting belief, a thought pattern that you have, that you've been stuck on or fixated on, and you actually take action, there is going to be movement. There is going to be something quick that comes your way that you've been waiting for. And this is kind of, I think, a promising and inspiring read. There is a lot to look forward to on the other side. It just requires you to turn inward and to disrupt the patterns that you have been fixated on, the thoughts that you have been stuck on. One of my personal favorite ways to disrupt my thinking patterns and my limiting beliefs is to write out all my limiting beliefs, cross them out one by one, reframe them, and rewrite them in a positive way, and record those in my voice memos and listen to them when I go to sleep or when I wake up. in that window of time where our brain is soaking up and absorbing and just a little bit more powerful and potent. And just a friendly reminder, I did make a change to my podcast. If you want access to the full personalized daily horoscope for your zodiac sign or your rising sign, you can join my Patreon for $3 a month. And you'll gain access to 7 episodes of your daily horoscope for the week ahead, just to help you plan out your life a little bit more. And if you want to go more in depth with me about astrology, magic, tarot, psychic abilities, and everything else, you can join the Per tier on my Patreon for $10 a month. There's a monthly meetup, there's a monthly tarot spread, you get weekly collective psychic readings, a monthly astrology election, and so much more. Thanks so much and see you next week.